Oh my gosh, guys, I have a question for you. How are you setting the tone for a smooth, productive second semester? Hey there, math teacher bestie. Kristen Moore, and welcome back to the Modern Math Teacher podcast. If your classroom management feels just a little bit shaky after winter break, my friend, you are not alone. Don't worry, I got you. So today we're diving into classroom management strategies. Two of them to help you refresh your routines, reestablish your expectations, and keep things running smoothly for the rest of the year. Because you guys, now that winter break is behind us, it is like a straight shot to the end of the school year. And I know I'm here for it, and I'm sure you're here for it too. Okay. I'm also going to share today a couple of tech tools that you can use and try out this year if you haven't tried them before to make classroom management a little bit easier than ever. So, are you up for it? Let's do this. Now, welcome back. It is January, and we know that January is the perfect time to hit reset on your classroom routines, right? After all of our students are just coming back from winter break. They've got all this crazy energy, maybe a little bit of chaos coming with them too. So it's great time to go ahead and reset, reestablish those classroom routines. Now, I'm going to start by revisiting your classroom norms and routines. Reflect on what worked during the first semester and what maybe needs some tweaking. You can do this by yourself, you can do this with tech tools, and you can do this with your students, right? We talked a lot about reflection in the last episode and even back in December. But in case you missed it or you want to make this process just a little bit easier, you can use tech tools like Poll Everywhere, or I really love Google Forms to gather student feedback particularly related to your classroom routines. You might want to add in questions like, what classroom rules or routines helped you succeed? And honestly, like that might be hard for them to think about at first, but then, once they do, it's going to give you some good feedback. You can also just ask them in general, like, what's one area where we can improve? What's something in the classroom that isn't running as smoothly as you think it could? So the feedback that you get from them can help guide your reset, and it makes your students feel like they're part of the process. We're always about building that student ownership and autonomy. We know in math class, they are often like, well, when am I ever going to need this? And they feel sometimes disconnected from the class. So anything you can do to make them feel a part of that class is going to be beneficial for you and your students. All right. Whew. Now, now we know what we need to improve, whether you reflected it by yourself or you got some reflection and feedback from your students. I want to talk to you about one of my all time favorite strategies for classroom management. It is the CHAMPS method. Now, if you are new to CHAMPS, it's a classroom management framework that focuses on setting clear expectations for your students for the different types of activities that you're doing. So, this is going to set the expectations for, let's go through CHAMPS conversation. So, how they're going to be talking, help, how they're going to get help during that activity, activity, what the activity is that they should be doing, movement, how they should be moving around, or if they should not be, right? And then participation. So, for example, I have these. I've used them in my class in the past for like our warm up routine, what to do during a blended lesson. So, if they're watching those video lessons that I create, we've got a whole champ framework for what to do during an assessment. That's going to be different than what they're doing during an exploration, right? So, if you're doing these cool, unique things in your classroom, having this set expectation is going to help. Right. So if you're starting out with some group work or you're up at the boards, you can use and set one champs framework to explain when it's okay to talk, how they should be talking, how they can ask for help, and what successful participation looks like. So, again, I would set one for you can do entering and exiting the class. You can do whatever your instruction looks like. If you do direct instruction or if you do video instruction, have something for that. Active note taking, right? Active listening. Definitely, if you are up at the whiteboards, you have your whiteboard expectations, but just give it a quick champs also, right? Conversation, help, activity, movement, participation, and definitely a different one for assessments, right? Because, up at the boards, I want them to ask 3 before me. But during an assessment, I definitely want them to just whoop up and raise their hand and get the help directly from me and not their neighbor. Okay. Um, so again, I've used this in my classroom. I really like using it with my ninth graders, and I can see it working super well with junior high students as well. And if this is a strategy that you want to implement in your classroom, I'm going to link my favorite Champs posters and activity in the show notes. I created this for my high school students. So I've actually used it in my classroom. It's up right now, up and laminated. And it comes in a variety of colors to match any of your decor that you've got going on. I know I had two different classrooms and I had two different decor themes, so that's part of the reason why it comes in 5 different colors and a whole bunch of patterns because listen, you do you. Change up your room whenever you want. I just want you to use a really great structured framework to help make your class run smoothly. Okay. Also, if you want to like level it up and kind of gamify this, you can use a tool like Class Dojo to help you track behavior patterns and see engagement and identify areas that are going to help you see like what students maybe need extra support, what students are going above and beyond. It can also communicate with families. I use it very simply at like its lowest functioning level. It helps me make random groups and things like that. But it's a really cool tool that if you're looking for one tool to try, totally try it out, especially if you're on board with using Champs. Now, whether or not you want to use Champs, and that's going to be your strategy to reset your routines, I want you to think about creating a social contract. It is one of the best ways to reset your classroom by involving your students in creating or revisiting your social class contract. Now, if you've never heard of a social contract, this is something I was taught through Capturing Kids' Hearts. I call them our class contracts because social contracts, they're like, is this social media? Whatever. I call them the class contracts. So, potato, my friends. And it's going to outline the expectations that everyone agrees to follow. You collaboratively create these behavior norms and just like what the expectation is, how to set the vibe really in your classroom. Tech tools can help you here too. Cool things like Canva or Word Cloud I've used in the past make it really easy to co-create a visually appealing contract with student input. So that's super fun. I've also just done it on, the good old fashioned giant sticky board or sticky giant post-its, not a sticky board. You know what I'm talking about, right? So instead of creating an anchor chart for my wall, I have it as our social contract, but you can also do it in Word Cloud. That's super cool. You can put it as your background for like your Schoology class or something so they always know what the contract is. And you can also use tech for like a more interactive approach. This one's pretty cool. I've used this tool for other things and I'm excited to try it with the social contract. I think it's going to be awesome. You can use a polling tool like Mentimeter to let students vote on the rules and norms that they feel are most important. So typically in my classroom, I do it with like, we star it, we check it, whatever. Everyone gets a chance to say what the expectations they think should be and then which ones they think are important. But Mentimeter is going to be a super cool tech tool that you can use to get that. It's interactive. And so it's just kind of another fun tech tool you could bring to your classroom. So again, if the social contract, the class contract sounds like something you want to implement in your classroom, I love using this with all of my students, no matter what grade they are. So if you're teaching, 10th, 11th, 12th graders and you're like, Champ sounds a little young for me, then definitely get a class contract going on. And again, I've got you covered. The social contract, the class contract is the other half of my dynamic duo for classroom management. So I've got printable activities, the corresponding social contract display posters ready for you and your students. I'm going to link that again here in the show notes. So all right, guys, I know it's January. I want you to remember classroom management doesn't have to feel overwhelming, even though it might be a little frazzled as you're all coming back from breaks. With these two classroom management strategies and a little bit of help from tech tools to make it a little bit more fun and interactive, you can set the tone for a smooth and productive second semester. And goodness knows we all want that. Remember, if you want resources to make that process even easier, check out my Champs posters and my class contract lesson plan and my TPT store. I'm going to link them here in my show notes as well. They are ready to use. They are teacher approved. And I just cannot wait to hear how they work in your classroom. All right, you guys, thanks so much for taking 10 minutes out of your Tuesday to join me today. As always, keep it real.